Today, we are taking a look at one of the more underlooked series in the NHL playoffs this year between the Vegas Golden Knights and the Minnesota Wild, who have only faced off a couple of times in the playoffs. Vegas obviously taking them on and beating them 4-3 back in 2021 in the weird bubble year that was. But they're back at it here yet again, and I think Vegas winning the Pacific Division, taking on Minnesota in that first wildcard spot, might be favored to win again. But this is a very overlooked series because, again, it's two American teams. It's two teams that nobody really pays much attention to, like the casual fan at least. I know a lot of people from their certain teams are going to be offended by that, but it kind of is the truth. But these are two pretty good teams. So let's start off with Vegas here. 49, 22, and 10 for 108 points. They are the first place spot in that Pacific Division. They have a .667 points percentage. They have scored 271 goals and have allowed 218. Now, I do want to say that I am recording this before their final game of the year against Calgary, and Minnesota already did finish up their season at the time recording that I'm making this. So I do want to tell you guys that to keep that in mind. So the numbers might be a little bit off, but they're really kind of the same. Everything's going to be the same. They're not going to move up in the standings or anything. Everything's locked in as it is. But Vegas this year, very underrated. Not really talked about that much. Everybody looks at, the teams in the Central Division and the Oilers and the Kings. As for Vegas, maybe because they didn't do anything in the trade deadline, nobody really is looking at them. They have a 29-9-3 record at home, which is very good because, again, they have the home ice advantage and they have a very good home record as it is. And they are 20-13-7 on the road. So they can win on the road. They can win at home. They are pretty good in both ends of the spectrum there in terms of home and away records. So I'm a fan of that if I'm the Golden Knights for sure. They have a 3.33 goals for per game, and they have a 2.63 goals against per game. Again, Vegas is a very goal-scoring powered team. You have a couple of 30 goal scorers on this roster who can rack up your goals for you. So if I'm Minnesota, a defensive team that has relied on their goaltender a lot in the second half of the year, I'm a little bit worried. I am a little bit worried. And they also have a 28.8 power play percentage, which is ranked second. So they have the second best power play in the NHL. That's great for Vegas. They have a very stacked roster in terms of their power play. They got Eichel, Stone, and Hurdle, and then Dorofeev on their second unit who leads their team in goals. It's unreal what they got going over there in the Vegas power play. And then their PK could be better. 75.6%, which is 26th. It definitely could be a lot better for sure. But it is what it is. You're good on your power play. You can't, sometimes a lot of teams aren't that great on both, and Vegas is one of those instances. They're usually good at one and bad at the other. That's an example of what we got here. The first half of the year, the Golden Knights were 25-9-3. They were second in the NHL, so they had a very good record in the first half of the year. And then in the second half of the year, they kind of got a little bit tanked in January. Their January record wasn't that great, but they were 24-13-7 for third in the NHL. So overall, Vegas, the second half of the year does get a little bit painted too bad because they had a really bad month of January, and then after that, they were back to their consistent good ways. So I really wasn't worried. Again, teams go through rough stretches. I wasn't worried about it whatsoever. We knew what Vegas was. I was not worried about them at the slightest. I knew what they could do, and I knew how good of a team they really were. And that's why they got the first spot in the Pacific Division, the second seed in the Western Conference. As for Minnesota, it's kind of a different story. They went 45-30-7 for 97 points. They do hold that first wild card spot. They have a .591 points percentage. They have scored 228 goals and have allowed 239. So, again, the first half of the year for the Wild really kind of put them ahead. And the second half of the season, mainly on a lot of factors, the injuries, the schedule, their overall play itself, it was a rough second half of the year. And I think a lot of the stats that I'm going to read off here in a moment are because of the second half of the year. If they were the same consistent team they were in the first half of the season, their numbers would be a lot better. But because of a lot of the things they dealt with, it really kind of set their advanced analytics back. They have a 22-17-2 record at home, which is very good. They have a 23-13-5 record on the road. So they're actually better on the road. And again, they're starting off this series on the road. And I think that will prove huge for the Wild here. If they can take at least one of those two, if not both of them, I think that could change everything going into Minnesota. They could win one of one away and then win both at home, and you're up 3-1. I think that's how things could go here for Minnesota, and that put them in an absolutely huge spot. So we'll see there what happens with the Wild, but I think, again, their road record, they could really use that to their advantage. And again, I think that really does matter. I know I'm saying that home ice advantage does matter as well, but I think both things can matter at the same time. They have a 2.74 goals for per game on average, and they allow an average of 2.88 goals against per game. So this is a team that, again, those numbers were really dragged down by the second half of the year. This is a team that does not have a 30-goal scorer. They're one of the only teams in the playoff that does not. They have a couple of guys who have 20, 25 goals, but nobody really there running away with it, with the goal scoring. And kind of the same thing, though, for Vegas when you look at their overall numbers, but even still, just it's been rough. And again, I do want to say the goals against per game is lower than the goals for, but their goaltending has been pretty good this year, especially a guy like Philip Gustafsson, who we'll get into here in a little bit. Their power play, 20.9, which is 20th in the league. And again, it's below average. It's nothing close to Vegas's. In fact, compared to Vegas's, it's pretty bad. Their penalty kill is actually worse than the Golden Knights. 72.4, which is 30th. It's bottom 3 in the league. Down there with the Islanders and Detroit. So that is not good. It's not a good look whatsoever. I think if you're being honest, I think I said it on my TikTok preview. I said that, like, their PKs are both bad. There's going to be a lot of power play goals, a lot of goals being scored in this series. I would not be shocked at the slightest. And then this first half and the second half kind of really proved my point. They were 23, 11, and 4 in the first half. They were 5th in the league. They were at the top, basically, of that Central Division. I think the only team that was better than them was Winnipeg and Vegas. They were like 3rd in the West, and that's insane. And then the second half of the year with the injuries and the scheduling and the poor play really brought it down. They were 22, 19, and 3. They were only 3 games above 500 in the second half of the year, and they're 12th now. So again, the second half really dragged them down, and it does make me a little bit worried for the playoffs because, again, you see teams that, like, the ones that tend to be hot heading into the playoffs are the teams that win in the playoffs. And I think I've said that a lot before. You noticed it with teams that go on deep runs, like Montreal got hot at the right time, Florida got hot at the right time. You know, teams that weren't expected to go to the Cup finals or even win the Cup, they went to the finals because they got hot at the right time. That's the biggest thing. So Minnesota does not have that advantage. But again, everything changes in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So you could really take a look at that first and second half if you're the Wild and take it as a grain of salt, especially if they win against Vegas. It might not mean anything, honestly. And to be honest with you, if they're fully healthy, it's not entirely out of the question, at least in my opinion. I think it really could happen. Now, you look at the scores here on the Vegas Golden Knights. You got Jack Eichel leading the way, 27 goals, 66 assists for 93 points this year. He has been a phenomenal talent. Again, it sucks he didn't get 100 points. I've been a fan of Eichel for so long, and I wanted to see him get 100 points this year, and he couldn't get it done. I saw Marner, one of my other guys, get 100 points, but Eichel, unfortunately, could not get to that mark, which really sucks. Mark Stone, then, is second in scoring, 19 goals, 48 assists, 67 points. Stone has been healthy for most of the year. I know he's had some points where he's been injured, and people will be like, oh my God, LTIR. Nobody's been complaining about it this year, though, which is good. Very good. So yeah, Stone still has that playoff mentality, still is a playoff player. If you're the Minnesota Wild, you need to watch out for him because he turns on a different volume in the playoffs, no matter whether he's injured or not. He always is playing at such a high level when he is healthy. Tomas Hertl has been playing his first full year with Vegas, 32 goals, 29 assists for 61 points. I am a big fan of Hertl. I've loved him since his time in San Jose. He comes over there, scores 30 goals this year, is a 60-point guy. I think that really does say something. He was injured a lot of last year, and there were some questions, but he comes in fully healthy and racks up these numbers with Vegas, and I think that shows that that's huge. And that trade really did turn into like a win-win type of deal for both sides. Again, you look at the Sharks end of things, they got David Edstrom in that trade. You know who they traded Edstrom for? Yaroslav Askarov. So it all comes back together, doesn't it? And then I think they traded the Vegas' first over there too. So again, like it all comes back together. But overall, it was a good trade for both sides of the story. Shea Theodore, 7 goals, 48 assists, 55 points this year as well with Vegas. Again, I think still one of the more underrated defensemen in the NHL. Does not get nearly enough flowers as a guy who was just a star-studded player. And I like Theodore a lot. I think Theodore is one of my favorite players. Watching Vegas, his story is phenomenal. You know, he's one of the former misfits. A lot of the other guys aren't really a misfit. So it's an awesome story to see. And then Pavel Dorofeev is fifth in scoring, but first in goals. 34 goals, that being said, 17 assists for 51 points. Dorofiev's career high last year was like 20, and he comes in here, scores 35 goals essentially, estimated. Like, that is insane. And again, he was like the guy who was projected to replace Marshall Salt, and he's done a pretty good job. It sucks them not having him this year on their run, but even still, a very talented, very good player, and I think has a really bright future as one of those Russians who was picked later in like the third round in 2021, I think. So Dorofeev, very underrated pickup there, 100%. You look at some other guys that are in the Vegas depth charts. Riley Smith, who they acquired at the trade deadline. He was obviously a former misfit too. He spent some years in Pittsburgh and the Rangers before coming back. I guess Vegas realized, hey, you were here when we won the Cup. How about you come on back? So they brought him back, and if they win the Cup, you can put it on Riley Smith. And then Barbashev, want to give a shout out to as well. 23 goals too. Barbashev, 6th in scoring, just didn't make the list. Phenomenal goal scorer this year as well. And then Brandon Saad was a midway acquisition, has been a good ad for the third and fourth line for Vegas. So good moves there for the Golden Knights. They are deep in terms of their offensive core and their defensive core, and I still even think now, like, a lot of people are underlooking them heading into the playoffs this year. Now, you look at the Minnesota end, Matt Boldy leading in scoring, 27 goals, 46 assists for 73 points. I like Boldy a lot. Boldy's become a phenomenal player as the years have gone by. Again, you look back at that 2019 draft. If we were to do a redraft of that, which, by the way, that will come soon, I think Boldy would go pretty high, like top 5, top 3 maybe. I'd have to look at the draft, but very good things going on there. I don't know why my light keeps turning off. Anyways, Marco Rossi here up next, 24 goals, 36 assists for 60 points as well. Rossi, been a very phenomenal player. Again, he had some really tough starts to his career. You know, he obviously was drafted by Minnesota in 2020, dealt with the issues with COVID and such, and he took a while to come over to the NHL, struggled in 21-22 when he first came over, played some time with Iowa in the AHL, had his rookie year, I think, either last year or the year before, and has come in now and has looked good. And I think that has to be a good look there for Minnesota as a guy in Rossi, who's a young player, a young addition to this team. And even, too, you're going to have some money coming off the books. You can add to this as well in the offseason with the Parise and Suter contracts finally going away. It affected this team for like 20 years. And now they're finally back, and they'll be able to actually put some good teams together now. Better teams than they have right now. They have some good teams put together. I'm just saying better teams. Kirill Kaprizov, 25 goals, 31 assists, 56 points. Finally, he is here. I think you see, like, the second half of the season, ever since he's been out of the lineup, I just think that tells you more and more how valuable to this team he is. He carries this roster. He literally puts it on his back and gets them in. Just his story is nothing short of just phenomenal. And he's been such a great player. Watching him go through his entire career, starting off in his rookie season, and then coming through up to now, it's been phenomenal watching this guy develop as a 26-year-old type player who was drafted in 2015. People forget about that. Like, he was a 2015 draft pick, and he's letting it up even now. Matt Zuccarello, 19 goals, 35 assists, 54 points. Zuccarello been in the NHL for a very long time. It's been a good while since coming over from the Rangers. Kaprizov can take a big part in that, though. I will say that. But Zuccarello, got to watch out for as a pristine passer. And then Frederick Gaudreau, 18 goals, 19 assists, 37 points. Gaudreau, I think, again, with the injuries, he's been able to play some more time than other seasons. And the fact that he's up there in top 5 in scoring is a good look. And again, Gaudreau definitely will be looking forward to seeing what he can do moving forward into the playoffs as well. And then other guys that are on the Wild, too, that deserve shout-outs. Joel Eriksson Ek, 29 points in 46 games played. Again, like, if he was healthy, too, he'd have better numbers. Their first-line center, he's been just awesome. He's a terrific player. And then Gustav Nyquist, deadline acquisition, was acquired by Minnesota back in 2022, I'm pretty sure, and has been here for a little bit as another deadline acquisition as well. And I think he will be here next year, too, because I think he does have another year left on his contract. But overall, a very good offensive core there by Minnesota if it is healthy. If it's not healthy, I don't know. So, you look at the goaltending. The goaltending might become the biggest factor in this series. You have Adin Hill for Vegas. 32, 13, and 5 with a 2.47 goals against average and a .906 save percentage. Again, Hill has been a very good goaltender for a while. Won the Cup with Vegas. I have no issues with Hill. No issues whatsoever. I know what Aiden Hill can do. I've been a big fan of Aiden Hill since Arizona. You know what Hill is able to do. You know what this guy can produce. He is the goalie for Vegas, and I'm confident in saying that. Ilya Samsonov then up next. 16, 9, and 4, a 2.82 and a .891. He will not see the light of day in this series unless if Hill gets hurt. But then again, you might even go with Akira Schmid, who's been better at points this year than Samsonov. I mean, Samsonov's been okay, but the games that he's bad in, he's really bad. It's atrocious. Like when he has a bad game, so it's not great to rely on him there whatsoever for sure. And then you look at the Wild goaltending. Philip Gustafsson, 31, 19, and 6, a 2.56 and a .914. Especially in the second half of the season, Philip Gustafsson has been a major part in why the Wild are in the playoffs. If it weren't for Gustafsson and they had a goalie in like let's say a guy they've had in the past, I don't think they're in the playoffs. And I think we'll be talking about like Calgary against Vegas or St. Louis against Vegas right now if it weren't for that. But Gustafsson's played a huge factor in why they've been able to play the way they've been, and I've been a big fan of him for a very long time. And then Marc-Andre Fleury, 14, 9, and 1, a 2.93 and a .899. Fleury in his last season, maybe if they're up like 4-1 in the series and they're about to clinch and move on to the next round, maybe they'll put Fleury out there for the last like 2.5 minutes. I wouldn't be shocked. They probably will only do it at home, though, to be honest with you. But, again, it's his last year as a goaltender, last year in the NHL, longtime guy, too. You got to have respect for him. I respect the hell out of him, and maybe we'll see him in this series. But I'm not holding my breath, to be honest. You want to have your number one guy in there, of course. But, yeah, honestly, it is a little bit underlooked for the right reason, just because this one, I think, as a consensus pick, Vegas will win this one, and I'm picking Vegas here in 5. I just don't think, with the way Minnesota's been in the second half of the year, I wouldn't be shocked if Minnesota gives them a run of their money and makes it harder for them. But I think whether it's in 5 games or 7 games or 4 games, I think Vegas wins this series. I just am not that confident in the Wild. Their advanced analytics aren't that good, even if the second half isn't that great. But again, anything can happen in the playoffs. Any team can get hot at the right time. Exhibit A, the Florida Panthers in 2023. So, yeah, let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on this video. Thank you guys for watching. Let me know who you have picking this series. But anyways, that's it for me. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.